Hey guys, today I want to talk about bluffing. Yes, one of the things I've wanted to get to for a really long time. One of my favorite things to do in Yu-Gi-Oh! Now, what is bluffing? Bluffing is making your opponent maybe think that you have a card that you don't, or like faking your opponent out. And so an example of that I'll give you right now is, I was like perfectly six anyway, or not. So you summon your Archfiend. This is an Archfiend. And then you set all your cards. Right here you're thinking, he played an Archfiend in attack mode. I'm obviously playing against Infernities, so he either has Starlight Road or Infernity Barrier. Okay. I'm not going to heavy storm that. And so right there you just bluffed out your opponent, when really, you just set a bunch of monsters and all that. Because that's totally legal. And in that's just a small example of what I mean by bluffing. And another thing is acting. Acting has a small thing to do with bluffing, whereas if I'm top decking and my opponent has Archfiend in attack mode and Doom Dragon in attack mode. That's a Doom Dragon in attack mode. And it's my turn, and it's my turn to top deck. I draw. If I go, it's probably not anything good. It's probably what either your opponent's thinking, or it's a pot of duality, so it's not good if you're really not trying to bluff. If you draw your top card and you go, and he goes, okay, he immediately set that card, so it's either he didn't check anything, so it's probably something that affects my monsters. He didn't check any of my field to see how many back row I had. It's probably not an MST, so it's probably something that I don't want to attack into. I'll switch this monster to defense mode and attack, thinking it's a Mirror Force, when really, you flip up your pot of duality next turn or reveal a bunch of cards, and go from there. Another thing would be, even if you're not playing Infernities, is bluffing the Mirror Force. And let's say you have something that isn't an Infernity, because that would ruin the idea. So you have a Tour Guide in attack mode. Or you have a Tour Guide in your hand that's totally dead. And you have a Spell or Trap, let's say MST. You summon your Tour Guide in attack mode. It's totally dead. You don't have any targets in it. And of course, then you would have to reveal your deck, and they would check. And if you have two Mirror Forces in your deck, it's probably not going to work. But anyway, some cards, maybe not Tour Guide. This is getting complicated. Anyway, summon your monster in attack mode, set your MST, and say go. And they're going to be looking at your field like, why did he play that in attack mode? Why didn't he set it? He's trying to bait me out. That would normally be a really obvious bluff, but they're probably going to move cautiously. Be like, they'll have a monster field full of monsters in attack position. You're going to be like, summon monster in attack mode, set, go. And then they're going to be like, okay, I'll attack you. And you're going to sit there like, really? Are you sure? I'll let you take that back. And they're probably going to think twice about it. Maybe switch the monster to defense and have you maybe not lose that turn because of your bluff. They probably will attack over the Tour Guide, maybe experiment, and maybe set a card, whereas then you can set your or use your MST during the end phase and top deck. And I would have top deck an Archfiend. Oh, look at that. Probably because I put it on top of there last time I was explaining. Anyway, another thing I want to talk about is reads. Reading is a really big aspect of Yu-Gi-Oh! Because you need to know what your opponent is thinking, really. You want to really get inside their head, because it really helps you out in the long run. If you're good at it, you can kind of realize your opponent's play style and either bring it down to their level, to their speed, or below it, or above it, where they're not comfortable at playing, where they're going to try to bring the level down to where they are, and so it's going to be a kind of a struggle from there, kind of like a grind game. And so let's look at a normal first hand move. Let's say you're normally going to see monster put face down defense in 2 face downs. That's a really common open move. What that does is it conceals what you're playing, and it allows your opponent to really think about attacking or playing certain cards. Really, I set a couple of monsters in my spell and trap card zone because that's legal. And so if you have, say, 2 face downs in your spell and trap card zone, they may not think twice about heavy storming. But if you had set 3 or maybe even 4, that shows your opponent that you're not afraid of anything they got, really, because if they heavy storm you, you probably have a card because you just set all these cards. You know the risk, so you know, you're prepared for it. That tells your opponent that they probably are not going to want to heavy storm, that they want to probably save that heavy storm and maybe bait something out with MST. And so that kind of goes both ways. That's a way that you can either bluff out your opponent or read your opponent. For instance, if you set a bunch of cards and you don't have anything to protect you, and you want to go all in, you do that, because it makes your opponent think that, oh, well, I haven't played this guy before, I don't know whether or not he bluffs a lot, so he probably has something face down, something to protect himself if he played a lot of those. And same thing goes with you. If you're looking at your opponent and they set a monster and then set 3 back row, they probably have something that is going to protect you from protect them from heavy storm. And simple stuff like that. For instance, them summoning a Thunder King in attack mode first turn in passing doesn't necessarily mean that they're playing anti-meta. They're probably just attacking in a Thunder King. Them leaving their field open doesn't always necessarily mean that they have Gores. And the same thing goes with you. Now, one of my favorite things to do with Gores is kind of get your opponent to try to attack you. Make them feel comfortable with attacking, and then bring out your Gores. And what I mean by that, if I can find Gores, which I'll find Gores, I'll keep talking. Anyway, a lot of the times, good players will use their MST to do that. So here's your Gores, and an MST is in the deck. So you'll be holding, say, 1 card in your hand, and you'll be looking and you'll be like, okay, pass, I can't do anything. So that tells your opponent that this card isn't a spell or trap card that's useful. This card isn't a trap card because you probably would have played it face down in order to bluff your opponent out, and it isn't a spell card either, so it's probably a monster. Now, the reason you can't summon this monster is because its summoning conditions haven't been met, or it has to be summoned by other ways. For instance, if you're looking at your opponent and they have 1 card in their hand, no cards out in the field, and you look at their graveyard and they have plenty of lights and darks, you know it's probably not Chaos Sorcerer or Blackluster Soldier. So that leads you to believe that it's either Battle Fader, Swift Scarecrow, Gores, Tragodia, any of those cards. Now, another thing to look at is if you want to bluff your Gores, not necessarily bluff the Gores, but bluff the MST with your Gores, which is a really good technique in advanced play, is you have your Gores and your MST in your hand. And you say, okay, I'm going to trick them into getting into my Gores. I'm going to set this MST. What that does is it tells your opponent that you probably don't have Gores in your hand because, I mean, you set a card. So, right before the battle phase, you're going to be like, MST. Whoa. Destroy a card. And now your field's open, and they're going to be like, okay, just MST me. Attack. Boom. Gores. What now? I win. Gores for game. Yeah. Anyway, those are a couple things I wanted to talk about. Comment if you like this kind of bluffing thing. Tell me what you guys do to bluff, and tell me when you've been bluffed, or made good reads, or even made bad reads, or really horrible reads. Anyway, comment, like, subscribe, and I will talk to you guys later.